Hello, I'm John Shepherd, and in this short video we're going to take a look at some recent questions that have been sent in regard to the latest video I put up on basic conditioning and leg stiffness. We're going to take a look at the frequency of drop jumping, i.e. how many times a week you can do such sessions. We're also going to take a look at whether or not you can add weights to drop jumping to enhance performance. And in relation to that, we're also going to consider some questions that have been sent in on vertical jumping by basketball players and volleyball players, and whether or not the methods that are used by athletes can enhance vertical jump ability. Now, the first question comes in from Parveen Siawat, and he wants to know how many times a week he can train with drop jumps. Now, I'd say that in the past it was all done on the number of ground contacts within a session, and there might be a limit to 200, 100, whatever ground contacts. I, however, follow more of a procedure of when the athlete begins to look fatigued. Now, of course, we're not going to do thousands of ground contacts in a session, but I'm looking for the point when they begin to become less reactive and less able to generate so much power. When I see this, it's time for the session to stop. Having said that, we'll do 2 major plyometric sessions a week, where we'll do drop jumps in particular, and then in the other 2 sessions, main group sessions, we'll do other types of plyometrics such as skipping and bounding types of drills. Now, I will add to that you don't want to start with very high drop jumps. 60 centimeters is about the height that's been proven to be the most effective for developing both strength and speed, and that's the work of the Soviets and Yuri Veroshansky in particular. So work around that height and also below it with 20 centimeters and 40 centimeter drops down onto 2 feet and reacting as quickly as you can. If you do that, use sets of 5 repetitions, and for example, do 60 centimeter drop heights 3 times 5, 40 centimeter drop heights 3 times 5, and 20 centimeter drop heights 3 times 5 as well. Take plenty of recovery between the jumps. You need about 30 to 40 seconds before the high energy phosphates in your muscles recover and enable you to go full on for the next effort. I will add that certain types of drop jumps are more intense than others, so those from a higher height, for example, but so too are those that require you to land on one foot and jump forwards, for example. Now, some argue those aren't true types of drop jumps. However, they are an effective means of developing the type of strength required for the long and the triple jump. So I will progress more carefully to those. It also used to be said that you should be able to squat, I think it was 1.5 times your body weight before you do drop jumps. Now, if you're already doing long jump, triple jump, or even sprinting, you're overcoming multiple times that body weight on each contact, takeoff on the board or ground contact when sprinting. So in a way, I think that's a little bit of a redundant way of thinking. However, as mentioned, do make sure you're specifically conditioned and you're strong enough and have had enough years of athletic training behind you in order to safely perform the jumps. Now, the second question comes in from Sandeep Theepa, and he asks whether or not you should add weights to drop jumps. The research that I've discovered from the Soviet Union, as referenced earlier, and the work of Veroshansky indicates that no, adding weights to drop jumps won't be of additional benefit. This is potentially due to the fact that the reactive forces involved will be slowed because of the additional weight, and it's a fine line between generating a lot of force in a small amount of time and developing that leg stiffness that I talked about in the previous video. And potentially by utilising a heavier weight whilst drop jumping, that's going to slow down the responses. Now, the third question, or rather I should say topic, comes in from a number of comments made by a number of channel subscribers and viewers, such as Radeep Peterson, who asks about whether the methods that are used for the long and triple jump can improve vertical jump performance. Rita, I believe, is a basketball player. Now, I do coach high jump to a degree, but not to the same level as the long and triple jump. And I also write a number of articles on sports training, as some of you will know. And I recently did one on high jump training for Athletics Weekly. And in that, I looked at some of the research that was put out by the IAAF in new studies in athletics. and there are a number of methodologies suggested for improving vertical jump capacity. One of the world's foremost authorities on the high jump comes from Germany, and his name is Johnshepherdfitness, and he has this to say about conditioning for the high jump. When plyometric drills are combined with traditional resistance training programs, vertical jump performance appears to be enhanced to a significantly greater extent than if performing either resistance training or plyometric training alone. And it was also pointed out that there were certain limitations, for example with weight training, when it came to the mature athlete in terms of developing greater vertical jump ability. Now that's a little bit of an odd one in that it seems to contradict what I said about drop jumps and adding weight. However, Jürgen, I believe, is talking about performing jump squats, jump lunges for example, and he advocates using a weight of around 30% of one repetition maximum, which he believes is optimum for developing vertical jump performance. He calls this method of training ballistic training. Now the high jumper, potentially like the volleyball player and the basketball player, will have a little bit more time on the ground to impart force in which to generate vertical lift. Therefore, it's potentially the case that working with this ballistic training methodology will be more specific to the nature of the high jump takeoff. So if I were coaching a volleyball or a basketball player, I would include drop jumps and ballistic training as well, and also more standard forward direction plyometrics such as bounds and hops. If you think about it, a layup is very similar to the last two steps in the long jump. There's a plant and a drive up to the basket. So working through the necessary movements, working on the free leg swing and the technique involved in getting off the ground, as well as of course the technique involved in dunking a basketball or going for a layup, would be crucial. So I just use my logic and employ the techniques that I use for jumps training for the long and triple jump with some vertical jump orientated more specific work in order to improve hopefully the ability to take off and go upwards rather than forwards. Now I want to conclude with something that's become a bit of a hot potato in relation to the latest video again, and that's the role of weight training. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in this particular video, as again I think it warrants one on its own. However, I want to indicate that weight training does have a value for developing improved jump ability. I just don't think it's as strong a one as other people may think. Now this again is backed up by a lot of current thinking in athletic training, that's track and field training. And I'm going to quote to you again some of the words of Johnshepherdfitness. In regard to some research, he's indicating this is supported by a number of studies that showed improvements in vertical jump performance in novice or recreationally trained individuals after heavy resistance training programs, but limited improvements in individuals or athletes with substantial resistance training experience. Now that's the point that I often try to get across in my videos. You need a foundation of weight training strength to be a good standard athlete or an elite standard athlete. However, its benefits reduce over time. This is my experience and also that of a number of other coaches. And it's at that point when you need to look to other means to improve your performance. And that's where the plyometrics and potentially triphasic training comes in. Now that is also a weight training methodology, but it's involving different movements, eccentric, isometric, as well as concentric. So, as usual, good luck with your training and competitions, and do subscribe to the channel and leave any comments you may have in the section below or through my other social media. Also, do check out the merch shelf at the bottom of this YouTube video, where you'll see some of the Jump Squad merchandise that I've had designed. Any sales will benefit the channel and help me grow it and develop more content that will hopefully educate you guys to become better athletes.